The situation at McLaren has reached a critical point, as reports emerge that Oscar Piastri and his manager Mark Webber are seriously considering their options beyond the team. What started as internal frustration has now become a genuine threat that could reshape the driver market and determine the outcome of the 2025 championship. The tensions exploded at the Singapore Grand Prix when Piastri and Lando Norris made contact at turn 1. Piastri's radio message afterward wasn't very team-like, but it certainly revealed his growing frustration with how McLaren has handled the championship battle between the two drivers. However, Singapore wasn't the beginning of this problem. It was simply the breaking point after months of inconsistent team management. Now, as Formula One heads to the United States Grand Prix in Austin, Texas, the pressure on McLaren has intensified dramatically. Sources close to the team suggest that Webber is actively exploring exit options for Piastri and using the threat of departure as leverage to force McLaren into making clear decisions about how they'll handle the remainder of the season. The timing could not be more significant. The US Grand Prix is a sprint weekend, which means 4 separate competitive sessions where Piastri and Norris will battle each other. Sprint qualifying on Friday, the sprint race on Saturday morning, main qualifying on Saturday afternoon, and the Grand Prix on Sunday. Each session represents another opportunity for conflict, controversy, and potential disaster for McLaren. Piastri currently leads the championship by 22 points over Norris. While that seems like a comfortable advantage, there are still 199 points available across the final 6 races. The situation becomes even more volatile when considering that 3 of those 6 races are sprint weekends: Austin, Mexico, and Brazil. Sprint weekends offer extra points and create additional chances for the championship to swing dramatically. Mark Webber's involvement has transformed this from a typical teammate rivalry into something far more serious. Webber experienced similar treatment during his years at Red Bull, where he often felt he was treated as secondary to Sebastian Vettel despite winning multiple races. This personal history makes him extremely sensitive to any signs that Piastri isn't receiving equal treatment from McLaren. Reports suggest that Webber has been in discussions with other teams about Piastri's future. The Ferrari speculation for 2027 is being used as leverage, but Red Bull and Aston Martin have also been mentioned as potential destination. Webber is not making empty threats. He has proven in the past that he'll make bold moves to protect the interests of the drivers he manages. The pressure on McLaren is coming from multiple directions. Former Haas team principal Guenther Steiner has publicly called for McLaren to back Piastri as the championship leader. Mario Andretti has suggested that McLaren is favouring Norris despite Piastri's points advantage. Lawrence Barretto has stated that McLaren needs to choose sides rather than trying to keep both drivers happy. McLaren finds itself in an impossible position. The team cannot afford to lose Piastri, who's leading the championship and has proven himself to be one of the fastest drivers in Formula One. However, they also can't afford to alienate Norris, who is British, extremely popular, and has been with the team longer. The so-called papaya rules were meant to manage this situation fairly, but they failed spectacularly. Reports now suggest that McLaren has abandoned those rules entirely and will let the drivers race freely without team intervention. This decision came after the Singapore incident made it clear that trying to manage both drivers was creating more problems than it solved. However, this gloves-off approach carries its own risks. Without any guidelines or team orders, the chances of another collision increase significantly. The Circuit of the Americas presents particular challenges for McLaren's new strategy. The track features a long straight into turn 1, creating a prime overtaking opportunity where aggressive moves are common. There are multiple heavy braking zones throughout the lap where teammates could come into conflict. The technical first sector requires precision, and any contact there could end both drivers' races. Sprint races are typically more aggressive than standard Grand Prix because they're shorter and drivers feel they must make moves quickly. The combination of a sprint format, a track with multiple overtaking zones, and 2 teammates fighting for a championship creates the perfect conditions for drama. The strategic complications are enormous. If Piastri and Norris are running first and second in the sprint race, will McLaren hold position or let them fight? What happens if one driver needs fresh tyres to attack the other? If Piastri and Norris take points off each other while Verstappen consistently finishes ahead of both, the championship could swing in his favour. The irony of McLaren's internal battle potentially handing the title to their biggest rival is not lost on anyone. What Piastri and Webber Webber are demanding is clear. They want Piastri to be treated as the #1 driver based on his championship lead. They want equal or preferential treatment in strategy calls. They want assurance that Piastri won't be asked to sacrifice positions for Norris. And most importantly, they want public backing from the team and guarantees that this situation won't repeat in future seasons. McLaren's options are limited. They could back Piastri as the leader, which is mathematically justified by his 22-point advantage. They could continue trying to keep both drivers happy, though this strategy has clearly failed. They could back Norris, which would be politically easier given that McLaren is a British team, but mathematically wrong. Or they could let the drivers race freely and hope that neither takes the other out of contention. The psychological warfare is intense. Piastri has the confidence of leading the championship, but faces pressure to maintain his advantage. Norris needs to close the 22-point gap quickly, which could lead to desperate moves. The team is trying to manage both drivers' expectations while dealing with intense media scrutiny.